Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur AFIFAH AZREEN binti ABDUL. Today I would like to share with you about occupational choice and sex. Meaning of sex. Sex is a nature trait on an individual since birth. Sex is a biological. This is clearly evident from the difference in hormones, genital and physical appearance. Sex is fixed and cannot change it. It fits to men and women. Malaya achieved independence on 31st August 1957. The independence is not only independence of British colonial rules, but it is an opportunity for women's freedom to compete and get equal right with men. The inequality is evident when women are forced to double their duties as a mothers at homes and outside workers to support their families. Even the wage earned by women are lower than that of men. Women are only encouraged to receive informal education that is religion in nature rather than formal that include readings, writing and counting skills. The majorities of the women are illiterate for not being able to finish their studies and were asked to marry by their family. Women's live are inexorable intervenes. Formal education is limited. The choice of a male dominated occupational rately than a traditionally feminine one is the single occupational variable which meaningful divisions classes of women who are studied intensively. Women who are choose occupational which employ largely men differ predictable from women who are select feminine occupational in terms of family influence, works values, work experience, role model influence, and some college activities. The two groups do not differ appreciably in sociability experience or in relationships with parents. So it cannot be argued that the work plans of the pioneer women stem from social isolations, rejections, and lacks of appropriate feminine socializations. Generations and the gender weight gaps have been very prolific, both within sociology and economics. Yet and despite the largest bodies of empirical evidence produced in the last 3 decades, theoretical controversies remains unresolved to date. One useful way of summarization this theoretical controversies is seeing that as a conflict between two main competing view on the factors that govern allocative and valuative processes. The first view argues that both these processes can be explained mainly by social culture factors. Men and women are socialized in different genders of roles, and this is turn shape their occupational choice and career aspirations. Moreover, society at large value differently the work performance by each sex, so that the job mostly occupied by women are rewardedly less, regretfully less of their intrinsic economic values. The second view, however, sees the both allocative and valuative processes as mainly driven by purely economic. This latter perspective stress that the importance of cost-benefits calculations, economic specializations, and clearly the consequence that women's capital investment and contractual hazard might have for the allocations and valuations choice of both individual, employer, and employed. Hence, which leads the former view focuses on socialization process. The latter seek to explain both segregations and the gender way gaps by drawing on rational actions principle of individual behavior that are taken to be shared by all actors regardless of their sex. Theory social culture. This theory stresses that values and stereotypes regarding women's and men's roles in society are carried into labor market. As a result of the sex role differences which are acquired through socialization process, women on average who be more likely to assign and a greater values to home caring than to pay work, and hence their jobs operations will be generally lower than men's. Women who consequently tends to self-selections themselves into demanding but also less rewarding jobs. Employer on their parts will be prone to sex typing and sex aberrations in their contracting and promoting practice, hence inquiring into more or less advanced forms of gender discriminations. Employer generate taste and the exclusionary practice that follow, who also reflects their socializations in patriarchal values. Both women and employer gender will view those affects the allocation process. According to the so-called culture devaluations theories, patriarchal attitudes and values can also affect the values process itself. Both experimental evidence as well as evidence from prestige survey do indeed suggest that people tend to science and lower values to works carried out mostly by women. According individually are rewarded for the values of the additional productivities that investment in skill bring. Individual acquired skills through schoolings and on the jobs, depending on their scope of applicability. Skill are defined as general industry specs, occupational specs, of firm specs. Rationally, employer have very few incentively to invest in skill that are not firm specs. Say nothing who prevent competing firms from approaching workers after a particularly employer have inquired training costs. Employer we do tend to shift the cost of training in general. Industry specs and occupational spec skill to trainer themselves. This they will typically do by subtracting the cost of these types of trainings from employers, which during the training periods. It was found that gender weight gaps was significantly smaller in so-called service classes occupational characteristics by high level of job specializations, and where the returns to tenure were shown to be highest. The logical implication of this finding was that if women entered job requiring high level of specializations in large number, the wage gaps would be reduced. It was also argued that the main factors increasing the cost of jobs specializations for women who was the exciting distributions of domestic tasks. Yet job specializations was not absorbed directly, which leads the divisions of domestic labor was not observed at all. It focuses only on valuation process, but the woman capital approach that he endorsed also include theories of job allocations. The fullest developments of the woman capital theories of allocations is contains in Becker analysis of the families. The main thrust Becker's models is considering that investment in household and labor market specializations process increasing reduce returns to thereby provide a strong incentive for a divisions of labor. Specializations will lead to men's investing comparative more in the labor market and women more in household productions. According to Becker, this is because women have an intrinsic competitive advantage in the domestic sphere, which stem primarily but not solely from childbearing. As a result, working women who rationally economize on labor markets efforts by seeking jobs that acquired less human capital investment. Okay, it is not necessary to endorse Becker theories of the families in order to expect rational women choosing jobs that entail lower investment. All that is inquired is that women anticipates discontinuous employment career, regardlessly of whether higher risk of incontinuous of for women are seen as the result of sphere specializations or as a structural constraints. In conclusions, it can be concluded that here that women are always dominated by works because they consider that women are weak and unable to do heavy works. Thus, they said that women are biologically weaker and have a softer nature than men.